There once was a man who could not hide his fear. He wore a mask that transformed his cowardice to rage. In turn, the man transformed into a monster. All that remained was a devouring fury that stalked the night, collecting the fearful faces of others. The celebrations quickly came to an end as the strange, hulking man came to the settlement. The ill intent and malice was palpable around this beast of a man. The butcher was covered in faces and skin of his trophies, which were other survivors unlucky enough to stumble upon him in the darkness. This was going to be no easy fight, and as such, surely Sylvia Chestershire stood between the settlement and the stranger. Considering most of the other hunters were incapacitated by both the previous spider hunt and a tournament that maybe went a little too hard, Shirley's backup was mostly determined newbies. Steve Austin picked up a bone axe and some throwing daggers and stood behind the savior of Schmuckies, followed by Maximilian Pegasus and Jordan Jones. It was clear out the gate that their usual hunting tactics weren't going to work against a foe that wasn't an animal. In trying to flank the butcher, Steve hit the stranger in its shoulder armor, and his bone axe shattered against the plate mail. The butcher then screamed, causing the hunters to go a bit mad with the rage this hulk of metal held inside its heart. Jordan was the armor bearer, and while she did what she could in drawing the attention of the invader, eventually the breathers overtook her, cutting off her head. The butcher then turned and screamed so loud that Steve Austin's head burst. Maximilian drew its gaze, but eventually he could not run away and was cleaved to bits. Shirley, the last one standing, hanging on by a limb, managed to strike with her bone blade, landing the final do-or-die strike against the Nemesis. It fell to the ground and burst into light, disappearing ominously. Shirley looked back at the Schmuckies settlement, pain in her heart, but at least the invader had been stopped. For now. The tribe innovated the symposium in order to discuss what was needed to defend Schmuckies in this vast and horrible darkness. They gathered their supplies from the Spedicules hunt and made an entire new suit of rawhide armor, as well as more bone weapons to replace the ones broken fighting the butcher. But if they were going to make better, more stable equipment, one that could go toe-to-toe with armor, they would need to set out on another white lion hunt. Wembley Christensen MD and Creamy Coconut were the only two hunters with experience that could make the journey, so they recruited Hansel Wolfram and Cholula Crystal into their ranks and set out. On their way to the White Lion, Wembley stumbled upon some marked ground. Recognizing the value in the markings, the settlement innovated ammonia sciences. Creamy approved of this. Going through the darkness, the hunters found what looked like an older settlement. In the center was some kind of ancient cooking contraption. Wembley inspected it, and the settlement learned how to make the lantern oven. The fight was a rough one as the hunters were still recovering from an attack on their settlement. The lion attacked quickly and ferociously. With unexpected quickness, the beast rushed Creamy, batting her around, until finally chomping on her head, crushing her in its mighty jaws. Wembley tried to help, but due to his blinded eye, leprosy, and so many other ailments, he was too late. In the end, Hansel and Cholula managed to save Wembley, but his head had been badly damaged in the fight, with fractural hemorrhages to his skull and his ears being eaten off. The three managed to kill the lion, albeit not as they hoped. Rest in peace, mighty creamy coconut. Returning to the settlement, Cholula became paranoid that some sort of being had followed them. She snapped, carving runes into her flesh and painting sigils on her skin with her blood. When Wembley and Hansel asked how she was, she simply replied, "I'm stronger than I've ever imagined," and smiled. That aside, the tribe decided to rein in their new lantern oven idea with the lantern branding ceremony. As Cholula had become strange, the tribe picked Hansel. They branded a sigil on his hand and he roared with strength. Cholula thought it was pretty cool that Hansel had matching tattoos, and they hit it off, creating two beautiful twins, Fletcher and Felix. It seemed like things were looking up after a Nemesis year of darkness, and that's when the town elder, Fart Armpit, emerged from her hut, announcing she had the tale of an old crone to tell.